All right. What's up, everybody? This is Jason from the Tone Lab, and welcome to another episode of Chillin in the Studio. As always, I'm joined with my boy, Tony Engel. How you doing, Tony?
Good. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good, bro. And today, I got an old friend in the house, my boy, Brian Fisher. How you doing, Brian?
Doing all right, man. Just got back from, I don't know if you can see that, but Casa Bonita.
Oh, there you go. Dope.
They actually do wristbands now.
Yeah.
It was on the waiting list for
what, like 2 years?
Seemed like it. It wasn't even me. It was my wife's sister, and we all went today.
Awesome.
It's badass. Everything works. All the games work. All the rooms.
So is it still Casa Bonita, or is it like a big old South Park freaking commercial?
It's actually straight up Casa Bonita, but there's little things here and there. Like they have a man bear pig it's a dude in a costume. It's not even an animatronic. It's a dude in a man bear pig costume.
Sweet.
And he's behind bars and he's like, bleh. And then they gave Cartman his own booth. So it's like locked off. It's like a little prison, you can't get in there, and he's all happy looking, Casa Bonita, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, they redid it, but then it was all crazy. You got to be on like a waiting list for 2 years. So
it works,
man.
It's better that way, actually. It's not like 7,000 people just shuffling in. You wait.
Is it all packed now?
It's pretty packed, but it's not like how it used to be, where there was like 6,000 people in the entrance. It's like you reserve. You have 10 people, 5 people, 6 people. They just take you in. You get right to your seat right away. They get your food orders right away. It's awesome.
They do cavity searches now, though, so
they do.
Kind of weird.
They totally do.
It's like, how do you say you're from Colorado without saying you're from Colorado? Be like, I went to Casa Bonita.
Yeah, Black Bart's Cave. Yeah.
So, man, thank you very much for coming on the podcast with us tonight. I know I've had a couple of guests in front of you. I actually had you slated out for like May, and then I had 2 cancellations. We had Mendel Bitalife from formerly of Aborted. He was supposed to, and I screwed that up because dude's like in the Netherlands, and I got the freaking time. The time difference between where I'm at and there. I trusted AI and it freaking lied to me. I was like, well, AI, what time is it there compared to here? And it was like, oh, it's 5 o'clock there and it's 12 p.m. where you're at. And that was a total bullshit lie. It was actually 9 a.m. So dude was on at 9 a.m. like, where the fuck you guys at? It was like, it totally embarrassed me. And then, we had Zach Joe from Cephalic, but he couldn't make it today. So thank you so much for jumping in. I appreciate it. So you moved up 3 weeks early. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from, what got you into music?
Pretty much. What's crazy is I started, my whole family's pretty arty-farty. My grandmother and grandfather are teachers. My grandfather taught at the Mac Lab in CU until he retired, and then he still went. My grandma was a 3rd grade teacher. She also was really creative, was a writer. She'd like to write stuff. My mom's like super crafty, does all kinds of crafts stuff. My aunts like that. They're all into photography. They're all into this, that. So when I was a kid, I was super into horror movies. And the first thing I wanted to do when I was like 3 years old is I wanted to be a stuntman, which is funny. And the only reason I wanted to be a stuntman is not to jump off buildings or anything like that.
Knievel.
Yeah, it was. Well, I was a huge fan of Evel Knievel. I had the big crank one back in the day. Yeah. I had that fucker.
Those are worth money now.
Oh, I know. All my childhood toys are worth money now. But so anyways, the only reason I wanted to be a stuntman is because I wanted to be the guy, because I found out that the guys in the monster suits were stuntmen. Right. So I was like, oh, that's the way to be a monster. I was like, oh, I want to be the fucking monster. I want to. But then I found prosthetic makeup, which is making the monster. So I wanted to make the monster. Well, in the course of that, I've always loved music. My mom and dad were huge music. They played I grew up with Yes and Genesis and Jethro Tull and all that crazy shit. So I was telling Jason earlier, it's like all my friends when I hit 6th grade were like, oh, dude, have you heard this band Led Zeppelin? And I'm like, my mom vacuums to that on Sundays. You know what I'm saying? Right. Pink Floyd? Yeah, we've got all the Pink Floyd albums. But so anyways, I obviously was into music also. And a lot of my friends were getting into music. And music is an expensive thing to get into. And makeup is an expensive thing to get into. So the thing with makeup is you have a bottle of latex, you do your monster face. Well, now you need a new bottle of latex. You need new paints to paint the shit. You buy a guitar, you buy an amp. You got that. You're good to go. And, ain't nobody trying to throw no pussy to no dude that's working in a shop making, not unless there's some weird actress
what movie you're working on.
Yeah, I was gonna say some weird actress that just latches onto you, but no. So it started there. Did the high school band thing. Happened to the guys that I kind of hooked up with. One was in jazz band. One was in orchestra, which was Mike from Nicaraguan. He played violin, and his mom taught violin. His dad played in the orchestra.
So you've known Mike forever.
Yeah, I've known Mike since like 1987.
Wow. So,
and he was taught like from like age 5, like violin, So, and he's that's for squares, and he wanted to play guitar, So, and I was kind of on the fence about it. If anything, I wanted to play drums. My dad had a drum kit when I was a kid. So, but got into guitar. Well, I was telling Jason earlier, heard Black Sabbath, and that like kind of sealed the deal, as far as like, God damn. And not only that, but it sounded like a horror movie soundtrack, like what I would want a horror movie soundtrack to sound like. Sure. So I was like, my love of horror, Black Sabbath. I was like, yeah, I'm playing guitar, man. Fuck this. I'm going for it. And then that just kind of led to still played drums. We had a music teacher in high school who actually recorded our band twice, 2 4-track recordings for free. He'd let me come in and just play drums for an hour when I had an off hour. So I was kind of steeped in all that. And then, the high school bands start to turn a little bit more serious. And when I was 17, well, no, I think I was about 16 when we started the project. But we recorded our first CD. Like, that was a big deal because this is like it was 1993, October of 1993. And we went to a big studio. We spent a lot of money.
Was that Time Capsule?
It was Time Capsule. And the reason we went there is because of Skeleton of God.
Yeah. Pugilist went there too, right?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. And so went there, had that experience. I was freaking, the day we wrapped, it was 9 days away from my 18th birthday.
Wow.
Our singer was 16.
And that was Undertaker?
That was Undertaker. Yeah.
And what do you remember what that was like? I mean, and do you remember what it cost back in 93 to record how many songs?
4 songs, which is the Undertaker
like EP.
Yeah, the EP. That's what's weird too about that time is it's like, this is kind of where demos ceased to be demos and became EPs. You could actually shop them around and possibly get signed, which is one of those great stories that the band got signed the day after they broke up. So one of those good fun time stories.
Undertaker did?
Yeah. Literally the whole thing blew up one night. And the next day they got the call like, hey, you guys want to... I was already out of the band. So we started with that. I don't remember the pricing. I do remember it was right at the very beginning of digital recording because they had computers and shit. And I think they were recording. On DAT? Well, I think they were recording analog, but they were controlling. Basically, they had digital controllers. So they could control all their analog gear with digital interfaces, basically.
Right. They still had reel-to-reel tape and all that.
Yeah, they had all the tape. It was I can't remember what the...
Yeah, a little DAT tape.
No, it was the thick-ass DAT tape. Not DAT tape, but like reel-to-reel, but it was super fancy-dancy and all that. And it was in this giant house that looked like it was like a mansion or something. So they had it running to the basement, shit running out to barns.
Cool.
They had isolation rooms. I'd never seen that. I'd recorded in one little like home studio before, and I'd never seen isolation rooms. So it blew my fucking mind that we could all play at once. And there was a giant drum room, and then there was a bass room, 2 guitar rooms. The only thing that wasn't recorded at that time was the vocals. So that was all tracked in later. But it was like at 17 years old, I'm like, fuck, this is crazy. This is crazy.
Yeah, heck yeah. At 17, I'd have been dope.
And not only that, a little intimidating because you got the engineer guys that would spank you on shit. Right. Like, dude, you're not in tune. I'm like, I'm tuned. I'm in tune. Dude, no. And I'm like, and I do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I think I'm good. And they're like, not quite. Come on. And this is really kind of before tuners were like a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like a big thing. So it was like they hammered me for like 20 minutes on just tuning. And I was like one of the better tuners out of the group, so
what'd you play in that band?
I played bass actually in that band. Like I said, it was one of those
vocals too.
Not in that one. That was just Dallas,
that was Dallas Brown.
Yeah. Which I think you're going to have at some point.
Yeah. He's agreed. He just has some stuff coming up. So we get him hopefully next month.
Yeah. He was one that was 16 when we recorded this.
Wow. Dallas was 16 when he laid down them vocals.
Yeah. And if anybody can track down it's actually on my site. I'll give you all my
absolutely
stuff. But to listen to this kid and he's 16 years old, you're like, Jesus Christ, man. This is for real. And we were all like, 2 of us were 17, 1 of us was 16, and 2 of us were 23.
Wow.
So it was a very weird, our drummer, our later guitar player who joined later when it became Undertaker were 23. Me and Matt, who went to school together, were 17 going on 18, and Dallas was 16.
Yeah, I remember because when I was live with my my mom grew up. We traveled all over the place, but we lived in Tampa, like right at like a really cool time with like metal and death metal, and there was all these bands. And I remember the neighborhood I was at. There was like these little storage unit warehouses, and there would be bands. And looking back, it's like maybe that one was Massacre, and maybe that one was. There was all these different bands, but I just remember that was the first time I really being kind of turned on to it, and I was really loving that scene. And then I got sent to Colorado.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Aurora, like I don't remember who handed me the tapes, but I literally got the Undertaker and Skeleton of God. Actually, it
might have been the
Hideous Corpse. I can't remember, but I got those 2 tapes were like the first kind of like, and I was like blown away. I was like, wow, like Colorado has like a sound and it's different, And
our tapes actually were pretty cool. We had the red foil inside. The clear tape with the blood red.
Well, I think I probably had a copy that was copied 400 times, but
word.
But like I've said in a prior podcast, like, back then, like when one of your buddies was a tape trader, in this case, it would have been like Eric Greenfield and like some different guys I met in Aurora, but like you'd get tapes that were copied or you'd have to copy it from them. And you would sit around like it was a warm fire by the tape deck, just listening to like this new. It was such a cool experience. Like I don't think I'm going off on a tangent, but I don't think the kids these days, they'll never know what how much music literally was life. Like there was all this crap in the 80s that none of us wanted any part of it, and then there was this new thing, this new music that was just ours, and all of these crazy bands and crazy names and just the more depravity and crazy riffs. And it was kind of a really cool time to be coming up. So for you, what a really neat time. So to move it along though, like, so name off just a few, because you've been in a bunch of bands, like whether it was Undertaker or Throat Culture, like why don't you kind of let us know like some of the bands you've been in and kind of how that went down.
So the Undertaker thing kind of ended horribly.
I'm sorry.
It was just like one of those things, some dude's not as good or better than you. He's just got better gear.
Right.
And we were all young and stupid and irresponsible and blah, 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 blah. And one of the dudes that was a little bit older was a little bit more like, I want to control the band. I want to be that guy. I want
Yeah, typical band thing.
Yeah, it ended up happening to me again. So, I took a kind of a break for about 4 years, and that was when I first started kind of fucking around with recording myself. And this is when I had no money, barely any instruments. I might have like a Casio keyboard, something. I think I was telling you I would beat on the bathtub and do like rhythms and shit like that. But at that time it was like you got your mom's dual tape deck, and certain tape decks, if you hit them in a certain way, you could actually multi-track.
Right.
It was like this little trick that you had to know. For the life of me right now, I would not be able to do it, but it's something from just messing around for so long that you figure out. And that, I think, is kind of what started the whole, because I like that ethos of start from absolutely nothing. So that way, when you do get something, you're kind of 2 steps ahead. So it's like, I did it, I was making mud houses with sticks. So by the time I got brick and mortar, in front of me. I'm like, all right, I can actually make something fucking cool. Like, I don't have to like wade through the technical end of it or even the writing end of it. It's like, I know how to get to where I need to be faster. It's still a journey, but so, after that, I kind of took a break for about 4 years, did some other shit, did stupid kid shit, was in a relationship, did a little bit of drugs, just fucked around, you know what I'm saying? And then I went to college in 97. I went to art school, and I met a dude. I met a dude there who was kind of he was in my class, and he was kind of cool, and he liked to smoke weed and shit and bullshit. He's kind of a chaunch, but he, you know, and one day me and Mike go over to his house and to see if he's there, because this is pretty much pre-cell phone and shit like that. And I don't think we knew. I don't even think they had a landline. Yeah, I don't even think they had a landline, because this was just like a crazy college crash house. You know, everybody there went to the same college. They weren't all in the same classes. So we knock on the door. This big, tall, skinny dude with super long hair opens the door. What, Chad? No, he's not here, bro. And as the door's closing, I hear Skeleton of God on the radio. And I'm like, I push the fucking door, and I'm like, hey, that's Skeleton. And he looks at me and like, that ended up being the guitar player in Thro Culture, Nick Jackson.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, that's how I met him, and shit just started kind of going from there. He had a previous band with a bunch of other dudes that
you guys got pretty big, no? Like,
yeah, we got signed. Yeah. Well, we were Thro Culture at first. We were doing really good. We actually produced a magazine that started off as
right. I remember that. I think
before my days.
In that.
Yeah, you probably were, actually. Before my days, it started off as like a 2-page black and white photocopied fucking zine, and then it turned into like a 4-page. And then it went full color because we were competing with Pitt magazine. You know, we're competing with Wendy. Well, we didn't really ever consider it competing.
Competition, yeah.
I went to LA. I went to LA on one of our tours, and we went to the Hustler store in LA, and there was a fucking Pitt magazine sitting there. I was like, yeah we're not competing with
magazine's
her.
Dope.
Yeah, no, it was dope as fuck. But that was kind of our goal, and we kind of hit it.
Oh man, now that you mentioned it, I should try to interview Wendy. Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be dope.
That would be fun.
She's probably got stories for fucking days.
For days, yeah. But anyways.
So we did that. We were Thro Culture. Turns out name was taken, website was taken, blah, blah, blah. We put out a demo that I was not on, but it was kind of the start. They had a guy do 2 remixes, and one kind of had like some drum and bassy type shit. And that was like kind of the stuff that I was into at the time. I was all over the place. I was into death metal, prog rock, fucking the Chemical Brothers, fucking all this drum and bass weird shit, and, you know, and hardcore techno, you know. But so after those 2 songs, those 2 remixes got a lot of kind of traction, in the, you know, and people are like, oh, we really like that. That's pretty cool. So Nick got the hot idea to put out in the magazine an ad for a DJ / keyboardist. I'm not a fucking DJ. I mean, I've DJ'd, but I'm not a, but he already knew he wanted me. He just didn't know, because I didn't have the gear at the time. So he just kind of threw it out there. So I got a keyboard, a pretty nice one, pretty crazy one, a Roland, and went and started doing weird ass shit with those dudes. And then, like I said, the website was taken, the name was taken. So, the guy that did our website just abbreviated it, Thro Cult. It's like the stupidest way we got our name, because every name that we tried to figure out, we would look on the registry, taken. No matter what, the weirdest name we could figure, taken, register, you know, copyrighted. So we were like, fuck it, I guess our website's already called Thro Cult. So that's what it ended up.
There it is.
But when we became Thro Cult, members changed. We got a different drummer, and the drummer was the guy that ran the magazine. So that was kind of awkward. Rod, the drummer, ran the magazine, but
oh yeah, I remember him.
Nick was the guy that graphic designed. He did all the graphic design. So it was a little bit weird. So we got Dusty, and that's when shit started going crazy. We were getting crazy local shows, opening for all kinds of fucking people. One of the craziest shows, I have so many, but Cradle of Filth, the first time they ever toured America, period. And we opened for them, and like it was 6,000 degrees. Literally people were leaving because they couldn't stand how hot it was. Danny Filth ended up getting punched by his guitar player later on that night for being a douche. But so we were getting all kinds of stuff like that. And we were interviewing bands too because of the magazine. Like we interviewed Slipknot. We interviewed, weird bands that are not around anymore, like Dope. And I'm trying to think of, there was a lot of those new metal bands that were like the early 2000s, late 90s that we interviewed, like all of them, fucking Mudvayne, fucking all of them, Seven Dust, like all of them. I mean, if we got Slipknot, we got all the, we got the Incubus.
Part of the magazine? Were you working on that too? Were you doing
a little bit? I sometimes, like, if Nick would get into a pickle with like a layout type of thing, like I came up with the idea for the Slipknot layout. We did it in the center, so when you open the center fold, it was the big barcode, So we did the whole thing, like, but mostly it was like, this is how me and Tony kind of got introduced. Kind of?
No, pretty much, because you were doing the reviews, like your favorite albums list or whatever.
Yeah.
And I saw Zappa was on there, and that's kind of how I met you.
And Bungle, and you were like, this dude's into weird shit. And like, I needed to meet.
Yeah.
And then me and Tony met in Typhoid Mary's room, and he was wearing a Zappa shirt, and I was wearing something fucking weird. And you're like, that guy? And I'm like, you that guy? And so we're going along with with Thro Cult, and we start to get, like I said, bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger shows. A lot of the promoters in town, like the bigger promoters, we started off with the local promoters, the scam artists, and moved up from there to like NIPP, which doesn't exist anymore. But we got the Bluebird, Gothic. I think the only places I haven't played in the Denver area is like the Marquee, and it's just because those guys are all hardcore and not into metal. Some metal bands have played there, but they were really into, and like the Fillmore.
Stratagem played there, right?
Some metal bands have played. You just have to kind of get in with the guys. So we started messing around with Nicaraguan. It was kind of just a side thing. It was just me, Tony, and Mike. And we would play Carcass covers and Bungle covers. And then we started wanting to turn it more into a real thing. And we got other people, and we ended up getting Nick. And that was going on as Thro Cult was going on. I think we started Nicaraguan in like 2001. Right. I joined Thro Cult in Throat Culture in 99. And then at the same time, we were doing Petlock.
Oh yeah, I forgot
with
Vic. Yeah,
with Vic, and
because at one point you basically had 5 bands going all at once.
I had two.
What were the 5 bands?
I had 2 recording projects. So I had a Thro Cult at the time, Nicaraguan, Petlock, that were actually out playing shows. Like Petlock played the Gothic,
right?
And that was a fucking weird band. I really wish that would have kind of done something. It was really cool. It was like a mix between Dillinger, Candiria, and I don't know, something else. Fucking weird as shit. And then I had 2 recording projects with Matt Blanks, another guy that got me into recording, because he recorded now it is, I have it on my YouTube page, but it was a previously unreleased, just figured we could not release it. It was like one of their, we were like a test subject, for their first studio. So I kind of saw the way guys built studios, how it was done, and it was just kind of not releasable. It's actually not bad if you listen to it. And most of the reason I released it is there's a couple songs that never got released that are pretty cool. But we did recording projects every Sunday. And this is when you couldn't buy beer on Sunday in Colorado. So we would go buy a bunch of fucking 3-2 beer, like cases of it, and get a bunch of Kind Bud. And we did these 2 projects, one called Beef Curtain, which I have some on my YouTube page also, which is really weird. It's more like Ween, Frank Zappa-y type shit, because I've always wanted to do that stuff. And then we did one called Red Hot Poker, which was a bunch of dudes that were in metal bands making fun of metal. Like, it even had Zach Joe played on shit. You can hear his ray gun on some songs, he's like through this pickup. And what the fun thing about those, the Beef Curtain stuff was pretty much written by Matt. I wrote like one song, but he pretty much like wrote that stuff out. Red Hot Poker was like, we'd just get there, we'd get drunk, we'd start smoking, and Matt would just start, like the old Elisa drum machines, and they have actually like the dial. And he would program a bunch of beats, and he would just start like randomly on the fly, just record it and just, and then we pick up a guitar and go, all right, let me listen to that again. And then, because they're only like a minute and a half long, so you're like, all right, let me listen to it one more time. Okay, let's do this. and then just and then sometimes just pass the guitar off onto somebody else, just like, you finish the song, so it was like shit that was never meant, it was just fun, fun stuff. But like I said, it kept me in that recording vibe, like not just being the guy that comes into a studio and I record my shit and I leave. It's like, started getting me a little bit into mixing and mastering and EQing and panning and all that good shit. So in about 2003, a lot of that shit kind of fell through. Nicaraguan was still going. Petlock was, because a lot of people, two of the people from Petlock were from New Jersey, right, Tony?
Louisiana and New York. I mean, or no, that's right. He just kept making fun of Louisiana all the time. But yeah, it was.
Yeah. Was the old Dirty Wizard in that? Like he was, what was his name?
Yeah,
the drummer. It wasn't Vic.
Frodo.
Frodo.
Yeah, Frodo. Shout out
to Frodo and Lou. I got a DUI at a Opeth concert that was in Boulder. I wasn't supposed to be driving, and my wife and Lou got so trashed that I was the one that had to drive, and I ended up getting a DUI. It's fun.
No.
Yeah, fucking 5 years ago. But so anyways, leading into that, Nicaraguan was kind of having my issues with Nicaraguan. Tony can elaborate on that all day. But that kind of, and I'm glad Cy came in. I really enjoyed what Cy did, because I was kind of not feeling it anymore, and he seemed like he was feeling it a lot more than I was. But then just kind of turned to my own devices, and the guy that I brought up to you earlier, a guy that runs sound for huge bands like Slayer, but he started off local. His name is Matt Kogel. I met him through Andy, our old bass player for Nicaraguan. And he's a sound man. He always has been a sound man. He used to run sound at like the Gothic, I think. He was like their house guy. And all the people that started coming through, they were like, this dude is fucking badass. And sometimes he would send me pictures, and it was like the backdrop for Motorhead. With a backdrop, like he's like getting ready to go to work or getting ready to clock in for work. And it was the giant thing for Slayer for like a festival show. And I'm like, fuck, man, he's living the fucking dream. But anyways, he gave me Cubase 3, obviously cracked copies, you know what I'm saying? And Reason 3, Cubase 3 and Reason 3, and came to my house and installed them. Showed me around basically, and this is before like interfaces were like affordable, really.
Oh yeah.
This is around like 2004, 5. No, because I got an 8-track digital recorder, like a standalone, in 2004, which I did a bunch of weird ass. It was kind of if you took the weird Ween and Mr. Bungle of the Beef Curtain stuff that I did and mixed it with more metal and more like drum and bass and weird shit. So I was just doing that with a drum machine and my guitar on this little 8-track, learning how to bounce down tracks so you can get more tracks, doing all that fun shit. I bounce this down to a stereo track so then I get more mono tracks.
Right.
So that kind of started it. And then Matt, like, dude, you should really look into it. And I was like, I'm good with computers, but it seems a bit like jumping in the deep end. He's like, nah, dude. And he's like, you got it. He's like, you got this shit. And he just showed me around, and that's where it started. And then I ended up getting, a couple years later, I got an interface. And at that time, Tony had an 8-track also. He had a Roland 8-track that he was doing stuff on. So then before I had an interface, this is what, like, my 8-track was my interface. Yeah. So basically I would record like track, drum track or whatever, bounce that down to a stereo track, and then take my SIM card out, put it in my computer, pull that track out, put it in Cubase, and then so on and so forth. Cause I didn't have an interface to plug my guitar in, do my guitars on the thing, put it in there and mix and master everything in Cubase until I got an interface. And me and Tony started doing that too, because Tony had a couple tracks that he had recorded on his 8-track, and we did the same thing. I just grabbed his SIM card, pulled the shit out, started fucking around with shit.
What's crazy then too is because I was doing Butcher Shop, and then I don't remember exactly when we broke up, but I think it might have been like 2002, 2003. I know that Tony had left and went and started doing, the band kind of broke up, but we were hanging on to the space and we were auditioning drummers. And that's when I auditioned Vic, he had just moved from New York, and he came in and auditioned, and Tony had went and I think was doing Autopsy Commission, and then so we wind up still going for a while with Vic as the drummer, and then I don't remember, but basically I got married, had a kid, had another kid, and I remember being in the Springs playing with the band called Pyrexia, and at the time I was a big Pyrexia fan. I was like, these dudes are heavy hitters, and I remember they were in their van getting ripped off night after night after night. Yeah. And those guys,
speaking of New Jersey, aren't those like New Jersey guys?
I think they might have been. Yeah. I don't remember exactly, but they were just like starving and been ripped off 5 nights in a row. And like my wife was pregnant with like our second kid. And I was like, you know what? I think it's time for another chapter. And we wind up buying a house. And then I had kind of a big old basement, and I had a big old basement with nobody in it. So I started renting it to Tony. And then
I remember it well.
When he showed up, he had his Roland. I think you had your Roland, and I had a Yamaha, but the same thing. It was like, oh, this thing does 8 tracks. And I remember thinking I was badass, like, and I was doing the same stuff you guys were doing. And then I had met you a bunch of times, like over the years, just in shows and different. So I knew exactly who you were. But you and Tony, I've obviously been in bands and had a relationship. And then you came over, and I remember you were like, dude, have you ever seen Cubase? And it was like, what? Like, I don't think I have a strong enough computer for this. And it was like, next, and then like, so behold, there goes the like, let me avalanche. Just go through Dell piece of crap computers. Let's see how many of these I can kill with 30 tracks, before I, start to rebuild something. And also, like, you're wearing the top shirt because it was really the 3 of us and Chris Brinley. And next thing you know, we were trying to record bands. The problem, I think, really where it came with you is that you just live so far away. Yeah. And it was just such a drive to get you out. And at the beginning, anybody, when you're starting a studio, especially what we were doing in a project studio, it's like, nobody has money. So it's like, hey, you want to drive across like an hour across town to come like work for free on some shitty ass band that makes you want to rip your hair out. You're like, I guess so.
I remember the one project very well.
Oh yeah.
Those are some hours of
before. It's like out of all of the bands that we wind up doing, because I think the Tone Lab went in Denver for like at least 8 years, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And
well, this was
a bunch of bands.
This was from the year, actually, kind of not really. I got this before that, but this was the year. Remember, we did the year party at the strip club.
Yeah.
Which
that went down pretty well, huh? My wife and I still talk about that. Like, we're actually pretty good promoters. That was a pretty good gig,
except for
no people.
Yeah, well, and I was playing bass at the time that I did very briefly, so I was playing bass and singing. And for those that don't know, we have 2 singers. Yeah, are very involved, and Nick didn't show up. So it was either
remember that.
Yeah,
there it was. Yeah, you still got one of them.
So. Nick didn't.
That was a good gig.
For whatever reason. Oh, Nick went to jail, I think. He got arrested in a Taco Bell parking lot or something.
He was playing Secret Chiefs when I had the juggler.
Oh, that's right. He was.
Yeah, he was there for that. But I remember because I was like taking a crack at it. Was like an anniversary party for the studio. Like, we're gonna do this gig, and I had radio ads and the whole deal. And I was like, but I'm gonna do it different. And originally, I wanted Bridget the Midget.
Yeah. We were talking about that.
I had her booked, and she got pregnant. But I remember her manager was like, "Oh, sorry, bro, we're gonna have to decline. Bridget's pregnant." And I was like, all right. And he's
I was like even better, a pregnant stripper midget stripper. Oh, that would have been fucking fantastic.
Next level creepy. And then he was like, I got a sword swallower, and I was like, ooh, sword swallower would be great. And then it was like, and then there was a blizzard on that day, and then next thing you know, it was like the sword swallower called me. He's like, oh, I'm not going to be able to make it, but I can send a juggler. And what was like crazy is that it was a total. Which was funny. We had a bunch of different bands because we were featuring all the different bands that we had recorded. For that year or whatnot, but most of it was metal. And so to have this dude like in a clown suit just juggling.
Oh no, I set that shit up
at a death metal show, and
I set that shit up
on Secret Chiefs.
No, it was a Stratosphere. because it's a song that starts off kind of slow and it's all like klezmer. So you're like perfect for juggling. Little does anybody know, I know the song gets progressively faster and crazier and it turns into metal at some point. Yeah. And the fucking juggler is just, he was like, going on and he was all good. And then he's like, fuck. But then when the, he was like, he came up to me afterwards. He was like, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry about that, brother. I was like, that was my fault. He was like, that was fucking awesome. Yeah. He's like, he's like, what is that song? He's like, I want to do that again. That was fucking awesome. No, speaking of Vic, it was a good time. Vic is another guy that kind of caught the recording bug.
Yeah, he sure did.
He was recording right in the practice space. He did it before. I think he was doing it before we did it. When we decided, like, he had his little setup down there, little laptop or whatever. So that's the other thing too that kind of led to Full Force, was in this process of getting the gear, learning the gear, knowing what the gear does, how to use. You remember like some plugins, like what was that one where it was like a multi-suite?
Waves?
No, not Waves. It was remember the one that we got spanked by Brian Lee for using? It always made everything sound awesome.
The Ozone?
The Ozone, yeah. But it was like an all-in-one. It had like compressors and...
Yeah, he spanked me back in 2005, 2000.
Yeah.
So, hey, there's no ozone. Hey, Chris, there's no ozone in my studio, I swear. No isotope, anything.
Funny thing is, there's a song...
And now he probably uses it.
There's a song that Tony did when he first got Reason that he put together. He'd had parts of it for a long time, and it was like he recorded it and fucking finally got all the parts down. And it's the triptych. We call it a triptych song because it's pretty much just 3 songs. It's very proggy and long. And he did it, and we lost the individual tracks many moons ago. And the only version of it that we have was done with Ozone. And we listen back to it, and you're like, God damn, that still sounds awesome. It still sounds fucking great.
Sorry,
there is a beauty to some of those raw recordings, because I think one thing I've always respected about Brian and Tony is that all of us are we're old school enough, like get it at the source.
Yeah, yeah.
You make chicken soup out of chicken shit, right? It's like you gotta get, and that was one thing that was really hard for me with the bands, is like all these dudes that are like, these crazy guitarists, but they can't really record 2 riffs together. It's like I want you to punch like 300 times. And I just remember, granted, now in 2025, that's just what people do. But I'm still old school enough that I think it takes all the life out of your music, and frankly, I hate it. Like I just hate sitting there.
Me and Tony have talked about that.
Your shit together.
We've talked about that where it's like too clean. It's too, and I've heard that in a lot of like very top tier professional recordings from big bands. It's like, where's the grit? Where's that slight wobble of, everything is like, and I have a tendency.
It sounds good. It
sounds great, but it's just
like, it's almost like, did AI do this?
Yeah, kind of like it's plasticky. It's kind of, this is there is a part in this whole story that I did forget, which is Dave Otero. But there's a term that I always used to say in the studio, which is you can't polish a turd, but you can spray paint it gold. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Because Otero did the first Thro Cult record, right?
Yeah. So sorry, we even talked about this earlier, but so that was kind of one of the biggest things too, and it was a big leap because we always went to real studios.
Yep, absolutely.
And so we had a friend who his first recording was his band, which was Cerberus.
Right.
In his mom's basement, set up a studio and recorded his band. And they were sharing a practice space with us at a time at the DAB. And it came out, kid was like fucking 20. And it came out fucking sick. Like he knew his trigger game was on point. Everything, was fucking, and we were like, dude, should we just record with Dave? Like,
good call.
And I think he was like 22, or maybe he was 21 when he recorded the Cerberus, and he was like 22 when he recorded us. And if I'm not mistaken, we were the first band after his band that he recorded. So that's another iffy. He doesn't have like another band that he may not know what they're looking, because obviously he knows what he's looking for Cerberus. Another band is going to be a little bit different. What they may want and what he can provide may be two different things.
Yeah, I reached out to him to possibly come on the show. We'll see.
That'd be a fascinating.
He's probably super busy, but
Yeah.
I remember. I feel like I met him a few times, but it was when he was in Cerberus, and I remember
Kind of a
thinking
shy
that band-
dude.
I remember that band was awesome.
Yeah,
And then, one day he was like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to quit and do a studio or something."
I think first off, he kicked out.
Talk to him about it if he wants to come on.
Yeah, he kicked out the guitar player, and then and then something weird happened with their drummer, and I think he was just kind of over band drama, period.
Amen.
I think, this drummer was awesome. I don't want to name any names,
Sure.
Especially
Name
because I was in a
pillow
band.
talking.
I was in a band with his guitar player that he got rid of.
What band was that?
Thro Cult.
My bad.
Because when we started Throat Culture and Thro Cult, we were when it first started, it was a singer, a drummer, a bass player, and a guitar player.
Yeah,
that was it. And then it turned into a drummer, singer, guitar player, bassist, keyboardist / sampler, and then we got a second guitar player.
I think my band might have played with you guys, but
we played a couple times. Oh, for sure.
It was like kind of towards the end. I think you guys were about done. I think we were about done, and it was like
it was like an Isle of Park.
I don't remember the gigs being very good. I just remember like, I think
it was like I think we played a couple Isle of Park Saloon shows, and
something like that.
Yeah.
So to keep this moving, though, how did acquiring Cubase then, I think you already kind of alluded to it a little bit, but how did that influence, say, your home studio? Because it basically said, so then eventually you got yourself an interface, and then you kind of did a lot of Cubase stuff, or you went more all in on Reason, and you've been more kind of producing with Reason, I think.
Both. At first, when I didn't have an interface, like I said, what I did, which I almost recommend anybody that's going to get into recording, get into first and fucking foremost, which is wave editing. Wave editing, it's like when you first start looking at it, it's like looking at the fucking Matrix. Like, you're like, I don't know what and then slowly but surely you start to figure out, oh, okay, that's what that is. That's where I can make an edit, and it's not going to clip. It's not going to do anything weird. It's going to meld right in sometimes. And then you get into fades, crossfades, and all that, So getting into the editing end of it, and especially like when I was saying we were pulling shit off of 8 tracks and everything, being able to stitch all that shit back together, being able to, not having it be seamless and presentable. And then you just get better and better and better at that. Reason, what was nice about Reason is it's all, except for their drum sounds, which are samples, it's literally all MIDI based. Right. So the early Cubase program's really small, really efficient. You can fucking do as many tracks as you want. You can have keyboards and you can program all your drums. Up until only a couple years ago, you couldn't record into it. Now you can, if you get it. It's kind of a one-all, like everybody uses like, Fruity Loops, and what was the other one, Tony, that everybody fucking...
Oh, there's a bunch now.
Ableton is...
Ableton's a little closer to
Ableton, Fruity Loops. What's Apple's? It's,
that
Pro Studio or something.
So
we're all the same now, dude. Like everybody's copied some. It's all homogenous, the same. It just rock with what you like, whatever you learn with you. But they're all the same.
Well, and going
a couple of gizmos.
And going back to Dave, the funny thing about me getting Cubase from Kogel was Dave Otero used Nuendo.
Right.
So when I ever did recordings with him, Nuendo, for anybody that doesn't know, is like top tier Cubase. It's the same company. It's the same thing. It's got a lot more.
Really, it's just Cubase, but with more post-production, video editing, and
shit like that. Yeah. And so
back then, Nuendo was quite a bit above Cubase. Cubase was like
2 years behind
Elements. Yeah. Now Cubase is massive, and it's
Nuendo.
No post-production.
Nuendo looks the exact same as Cubase.
Yeah.
It's just got different features, but it looks so the interface and everything's and I've always been a dude in every band that I've ever been in that I'm the dude that's in the studio the entire time. I don't give a shit if somebody, like the drummers are, I don't need to be here for this. No, I need to be here for this.
Yeah, me too.
I've always been that dude. Always.
Yeah.
I'll be the one sitting there with a stomach ache, still keeping it going. So me watching Dave edit or do whatever, or put plugins before I even knew what the fuck a plugin was, I was staring at Cubase. So for me, it's like if I went to a studio that was doing Pro Tools, I would have probably been a Pro Tools guy.
Right.
Like they all do the same shit. It's just whatever your, whatever flavor you like, So yeah, so Dave and Matt Kogel, very fucking instrumental in, slowly getting me to kind of going, yeah, I could fucking do this. At first it was more like, okay, I'm doing these like demos. I'm just getting the ideas down, and maybe I'll go to a fancy studio later and re-record them. And it's like, as time went on, I refined my my techniques and got better and got better and got better and got better. And, here we are today.
Right. Yeah, and you've dabbled in a whole lot of stuff, man. I mean, I don't know. It's like, is there anything you haven't dabbled in? But
country music. I wrote a country song once.
What done that too.
Bang, do
I think I did write a country song one time, actually.
I think it was called "I Kiss My Sweetie with My Fist."
Yeah.
So, what do you feel about recording your own music versus producing others?
It's not so much different in the technical end of it. I think it's more of like a endurance thing. Like I recorded one band by myself, and it was the most fucking exhausting thing. Granted, I didn't have an actual studio. I did it in the practice space. I invited this band in. I set up mattresses for baffling. I made a vocal room out of, mattresses and weird shit. And I had to set all that shit up, record the band for literally like 8 or 9 hours, and then pull all that shit down. And it's like, it's not your music, and it's like, you have passion for your shit. So you're going to kind of craft it a little bit more. You're going to have a little bit more patience. You're going to, I mean, not to say that doing stuff for other people, you're not going to be completely 100% professional, but when it's you, it's more of a labor of love than like, say, a job or this will be really cool. It's like, no, this is me. This is mine. I want to make it as fucking awesome. Because a lot of times too, if you record bands, they don't want you taking weeks mixing and mastering it. They kind of want their shit, in a timely fashion, which is understandable. It's like, I want quality. I'm paying you for quality. I don't want you to mix and master it in a day. I mean, that's just ridiculous, but they want quality, and, they might not be as patient to let you like sit there and fawn over every edit and every, I'm going to make this so much better. They might just be like, hey, we gave you what we wanted. Let's wrap this up. You know what I'm saying?
I feel you on that. There was times for me too, like where it was like, oh, I feel like I've got more passion for this project than they themselves do. Yeah. Cause I remember kind of what got me like really like thinking like, it was never something I wanted to do as far as record other people. I was happy recording myself and being in the studio. I'm the same way, just like a studio nerd and soaking everything up. And I just want to be able to do this on my own stuff. And then it's like, you go and you pay you're on the clock, and it's like, you get so many revisions. And, of course, I think it's every musician on the planet. You're never going to ever be 100% happy with what's done. But you go back and listen to it, and it's like, oh, I would have did this and I would have did that. And next thing you know, I remember actually my little hodgepodge unit right before I moved to Cubase was a 16 track. It was the Yamaha AW16G, and it was a 16 track. And there was some of my friends that were in like, underground bands or whatnot, and they were showing me recordings that they were paying for, and I was, according to them, not me, according to them, they were like, dude, you're getting better recordings out of that thing than we just went and paid for. Yeah. And it was like, how much to record? Like, what'll $500 get me? What'll $800 get me? And it just sort of grew. And it's like, well, $800 will get me a new mic. And so $800 will get me some monitors. So I'll record like 2 songs, 3 songs. And it just grew into this. Next thing I'm like a drug addict, and I'm just recording bands to feed my, and then both of you guys worked at Guitar Center. And well, that's a whole nother story for another podcast.
I was going to say that was
every day I was like, how about that employee discount?
I worked them. Yeah. Me and Tony both.
Between your guys' setups and my, we were like, you guys got to go.
No, within like a year and a half
of business.
I think within a year and a half, between us had built 3 studios.
Right.
like pretty legit,
decent production spots that we, not super pro, tons of outboard.
You had more room,
stuff, but we still had like the key pieces, studio hammers, things like that. And so that gets us into like tools and plugins. You kind of went through like your Reason and some of your plugins. How about this question though? How was it handling all those roles? Like, how do you feel when you're doing the artist, the engineer, the producer, even composer? Well, we'll get into some of your film scoring, but how do you kind of balance all of that? Do you everything's just kind of a big whirlwind of shit, or do you approach it in more kind of a uniform basis? Like you got this hat and then you put on this hat.
Yeah, you kind of, I don't know. I think I tend to start with the logistical end of the hardest thing, like thinking first and foremost, planning on what's going to be the hardest and most difficult and the most you're going to have to tread lightly, and then figuring that out, and then kind of getting like a locked in knowledge on what the core thing, and then actually kind of backwards track and start with the easy shit and go, like even as far as like actual song structure, obviously drums first, but then that is not necessarily true in writing. Writing, it's like you most definitely write a bass line, a guitar line, a keyboard line, or whatever line first. And then you figure out the drums to it, and then you throw that down, and then you revise the drums, and then you play to it, and then you figure out, and then you arrange, and you do all this shit. But a lot of the times we, and this is what I learned kind of from Dave Otero, which is like, don't worry about this until you have to. You know what I'm saying? Keep it in mind. Keep it, because it's kind of like CGI and shit like that. Say you're an actor and you're fucking standing there on a green screen. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. Well, the director better know exactly what you're supposed to be looking at, where you're fucking looking. If the monster that's in the scene with you is 8 feet tall, he better put a fucking tennis ball that's 8 feet fucking tall. Because as me and you know, with live capture, which is when you get the band there, garbage in, garbage out. Right. You know what I'm saying? So if you're not planned completely to, build this house, it's just going to fucking crumble under its own weight. And, I found that out on the first, the Nicaraguan that we tried to record. There was a bunch of fucking Mike's guitars that were fucking garbage. Well, they weren't garbage, but they were peaking. They could have worked, but, somebody else wanted to get rid of them to make, and then you get a person that doesn't want to re-record something. And you're like,
sure,
fuck. Now this is making me look stupid, for even attempting. Because I was the one that pushed to do the whole Nicaraguan recording, like do it ourselves. And it taught me a lot, but it was also, you get spanked on some shit, you learn some shit, you get, know.
I should share with you, I was talking with Tony and a few people, and I took one of those because I have one of those on the Tone Lab CD, and I put like a little remaster on it. I should let you check that out and see what you think. But I heard you did that too, because you got like all of the songs and you went through, and it'd be fun to compare notes on that. But we kind of went over that, so I want to keep you going here. Like, how did you get into film scoring and kind of post production and all that? Like, where did that come about?
So going back to the very first thing we were talking about, which me being into horror movies, sure. And so the predilection for, and I do play, I'm a multi-instrumentalist. So I play keyboard, I play bass, I play, so a lot of my first, even when I was a kid, a lot of my first written like piano lines or whatever were very John Carpenter and, sure. A band that I learned to love later, which is a band called Goblin, who's just an amazing prog band. Prog band that does movies for Dario Argento, which are just fucking fantastic. Even if you don't like the movies, you'd be like, God damn, that score is dope. Right. But so I'd always kind of, and even in Thro Cult, I had songs that had creepy like piano parts. So I was always into like horror movies, and I was always into like John Carpenter and Suspiria and all that shit. Yeah. So naturally, eventually, there's going to be some sort of ting 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 ting, and it's all inspired by horror movie scores, sure. But it just incorporated into the more contemporary metal setting. Tony has worked on me we've done some covers. We've done Goblin covers actually, which we're really proud of. They came out really fucking nice. I've done
so much fun to do too. They're like so much fun. You got to go dig around for vintage keyboard sounds in the digital world. So it's a lot of fun just even searching for
and then dialing in those, because you can't just kind of use the stock. Like me and Tony, we had to fucking figure out, it's not even a Goblin song. It's a stock cue from Dawn of the Dead by a guy named Simon Park. And me and Tony fucking went through hell. And to listen to it, you wouldn't think we would have went through hell, but it was just finding the right sound. And we didn't necessarily find the exact sound, but I was more concerned with finding the vibe. And that's a big thing with scores, especially horror scores.
Right.
So I always wanted to do it. And another thing that during that 4 years in the 90s where I wasn't doing shit, I did a lot of noise stuff. So, so that kind of segues into that also, you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of the horror movie soundtrack isn't necessarily soundtrack. It's like, like low pitched sounds and shit like that. So I dabbled in all of that shit. And then not only that, but the ways to make noise more musical, if that makes any sense. Like,
absolutely.
So just fucking around on YouTube, just talking to people, and saw this guy in Montana, and I was like, hey, I do horror shit, and I'd thrown it out to a couple people here and there, I'm not like seeking people out, and he was like, okay. He was like, I saw your YouTube channel. He was like, okay, shit. He was like, yeah, so just kind of random out of the blue. And then me and Tony's been helping me with it. But then with that, I started doing like, not dialogue replacement, like that would be like ADR, but I started doing like Foley and fucking background noise, and then started like evening out dialogue, because a lot of these movies are really low budget, filmed on a DSLR. So they're doing their Stanley Kubrick, and they're showing the front. There's two people talking, and you see them talking, but then they do a shot from the back. Well, the microphone is still mounted on the camera. Right. So they're talking forward and the microphone's here. So I'd have to bump that up, put some compression, pan, do all this shit. And they started really liking me for that. Like, oh, you fixed our, or something's like one of the last movies I did, there was an alarm sound, because it's like a space horror movie, and the alarm was so fucking loud. It's like, man, it like overpowered everything. So I had to pull that down in the mix. And so then, and I think a lot of times people just don't realize, if you just put yourself out there.
Right.
I mean, obviously you have to have skills, dedication, perseverance, and like the willingness to do it. And my main thing that I always tell any fucking artist, because I've dealt with artists, like all types of different artists, whether it be drawing, there's a lot of dudes that never finish what they fucking start. And that's my biggest pet peeve, is like, finish what the fuck you started. Even if it's shit. Fucking finish it, which is also kind of funny, because there's a famous saying that says all great art is never finished, it's only abandoned. Right.
Hey,
like I can only do.
A good saying. I should put that on a T-shirt. That and maybe Control S.
Motherfucker. No, that was my idea. In fact, that was the Tone Lab days. I wanted a shirt that said Control S, motherfucker.
Yeah, I'm gonna make them. Or you could call it whatever the Command S for all of you.
Oh yeah. Sure.
For all of you bougie fools. So that's a cool story, man. And I've heard a lot of you guys' stuff, and I remember what was that? There was like a vampire movie. It was like your old roommates or something, Tony, and they made that cool.
Oh, the book.
And the book. And then they did like,
and we did the sound. We did a soundtrack, and
it was really cool.
Yeah, and a lot of those songs. And that's the other thing too, is when you have the opportunity to record, and especially when you're doing like movie type stuff, this is what me and Tony will do. Like the one guy that we work with, Christian Ackerman from Fast Coast Productions, he'll just say, hey, I got this idea, this, like I said, one of the last ones I worked on, it was like a space horror movie. I don't really know the script. I don't really know anything. He's like, it's not even filming yet. It's blah, blah, blah. So I'll just do a bunch of stock shit. And I have a bunch of like, old school samples and shit like that, bubbling and spaceship noises. And I'll mix them with some noise, like make an ambient track of just like dead space, like.
Sure.
So he could just pop that shit in there Because he does pretty good at sound editing and shit. He's pretty good at it. So me and Tony will just sit there and I'll be like, just give me 3-minute tracks of space, anything. So, and a lot of it, 90% of it won't be used, but it's there. I got it in a library. You know what I'm saying? And,
right.
and maybe the next movie he'll use it. He's done that before too, where he's taken something that was supposed to be for one movie and he put it in a different movie. So yeah, building a library.
That's awesome, man. Like, dude, you are an interesting cat, dude. You've done a little bit of everything, and I appreciated the time, even though it wasn't on much really, that we got to work on stuff together. But I've always appreciated you and your knowledge, and it's crazy because, like, I've learned stuff from you, and then I've learned stuff from Tony that you guys have gone together. And, for years, especially at the beginning when I was first starting the Tone Lab, like, I don't think I would have been able to do it without you, without either of you guys. And I'll always appreciate the hell out of you guys for that. I knew this episode was going to run long. We're already at an hour. And so I'm going to maybe skip a couple of these questions because we talked about tools and DAWs. Now you're still into mostly Reason and a Cubase guy, which I don't blame you. Cubase is the shit. Now with all the MIDI that they do now, it's next level.
Speaking of that, I do all my scoring in Cubase.
Yeah.
What I do is all
Dorico and all that is really good too.
See, I haven't even gotten into any of that yet because I just got my new shit. But what was great about it, if you know what the fuck you're doing, you can get even free converters online. So you can take like an MP4 or say, what's the bigger fucking video file? It's not MP4, obviously. It's like a movie file, like MOV. But what you can do is you can get these free downloadable, bust it down to even way below an MP4 because you don't need direct super quality. Like you need to see the space. You just need to know where the edits are. So you bust it down to the smallest ass fucking compressed ass fucking small thing, pop it right in Cubase, boom, line everything up and just fucking, you can score live to it. You can place your tiles. You can do whatever. And the only thing is you got to ask, and this has always kind of been the problem with some of the scoring stuff that I do is I always want to get like their music that they're like their placed in music that they get like stock music and shit that they place in as placeholders. Mm-hmm. And then you have your just sound effects and then you have your dialogue. And a lot of the times I'm that one band that we worked with where I was getting all kinds of shit mashed together. Sometimes I'll get shit mashed together. So I'll get like most of this track will be dialogue, but all of a sudden there's some fucking music in the background for some reason. Or this is supposed to all be like the sound effects. And then all of a sudden there's like dialogue or music in it for some reason. And you're like, fuck, I can't separate that because it's already a mashed down file. So, but yeah, no, what I would say is with anybody that's like starting the journey to like start trying to record and everything is embrace every fucking problem that pops up. Cause I know Tony, there was one time I was over at your house and we got Tony's shit working or even your shit working. I can't remember what it was. And it took us like 2 hours and we couldn't figure it out. And we finally fucking figured it out. We were like, yes, finally. And we even did tests like, okay, if I shut this down and open it back up, is it going to fucking open? And we got it all fixed. I packed up my fucking hard drive because I used to bring my hard drive over to your house in styrofoam fucking box. And it was about 30 to 40 minutes to my house drive. I get to my house, get all settled. I call Tony. I'm like, so how's it going? He's like, I'm going to set all this fucking shit on fire. He flipped the fuck. He's like, nothing's fucking working. Dude, like,
oh yeah.
But it's always shit you can't figure out how you fixed it the first time.
You're talking about just a bunch of metalheads poking around and
bunch of dipshits.
Me, I'm like an old school manual guy. So like my wife's always like
pedal boards and fucking.
You're so weird, but it's like I will read manuals from page to page over. I'll put little notes in them and stuff. And so with the first time I got Cubase, it's like, I don't have a manual for it. And it's like, well, here, let me just print that out. Let me print out all 900 pages and then I'll put, and I made a binder and I had my Cubase and my Wavelab binder. And I would just sit there and go through all that and we would still beat our heads against the wall. Now
I have the actual,
wood. I feel pretty comfortable.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's all still in the same place. It all,
because I actually
added more to it.
I bought Cubase 5 and the newer one, whatever they're on now. Not that I got this with the newer one, but I bought it physically. This is when Cubase was fucking $800. That was for 5.
Yeah. And
the manual is no shit. I could fucking...
Yeah, they don't even come with manuals now. They just got the little help thing. Well, now I can be like, hey, AI, read me the manual and tell it to me like I'm 5.
That's right.
Yeah. Hope it don't lie to you about what time it is.
Yeah, exactly.
But how about this? So we wrap this thing up here. I got a few questions. We're going to have to get you on for some more, dude.
And I'll get on with some other people too. I want some.
Yeah.
I'll do one with Vic. I'll do one with Cy. I'll do one with Dallas.
What's one piece of gear you can't live without?
Oh, it's kind of hard because it's. No, I think Cubase is way more. Reason is something that's like a means to an end. That's very. The reason I like Reason, because a lot of people like say people like me and you, us that are like mostly metal guys, we don't do a whole lot of
mostly.
Yeah, mostly. They mostly come at night. It's a lot of like techno shit. It's 99% techno and fucking like drum and bass and Oh no, that's a great thing. Where you can flip it around. But what I'm saying is like it's geared towards like techno people and drum and bass and boom bap and all that shit and rappers and shit like that. But I do like their rock kit. Their rock kit sounds okay for what it is. Obviously, you get the better fucking drum things. It's a lot better. But just the ease and quickness of it. Like say if you're just trying to hammer out ideas, even if it's not going to end up, there's been plenty of times where me and Tony, like I've hashed something out like basically as a demo, but it's not really a demo because the keyboards are good enough to keep, but maybe the drums aren't. Like that's the other cool thing about digital shit is nothing's really a demo anymore because something from a demo can end up being the finished product. Like you nailed the piano part, but the drums suck. Well, let's just re-record the drums. And you can do that now. And it doesn't sound it doesn't sound Frankenstein. It doesn't sound like off.
Yeah.
So it's just very nice. Like I kind of call like Reason like a sketch pad. That's much more.
That's a good call.
Much more than a sketch pad because it's got a little bit of like Photoshop Express in there.
Mm-hmm.
But now you can record
quality sound and stuff. It's like you say, you everything you write on there, it's totally usable. Especially depending on what kind of screedle and stuff you put on it. But like,
definitely,
it's totally usable. Where can people hear your work?
Bandcamp, the Blacklight Automaton, which I know is a fucking mouthful, so we'll put it in the description.
Yeah, I'll put it in there for you.
And I think it's BL Fisher at youtube.com or youtube.com/BL Fisher, but I might be wrong. Might be Handcar Films but I'll put all that shit. YouTube is probably the better one because Bandcamp's the more like releasable, obviously because it's Bandcamp. But YouTube's got Beef Curtain shit on there. It's got Red Hot Poker shit on there. It's got Undertaker on there. It's got Thro Cult. Well, it's got all the Thro Cult that I could put up that's not owned by a record company, if they're a record company anymore. So, which is nice because the demo that actually got a sign that never was released is actually on, I think the only place it's on is on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, because that's one of the points that, I appreciate guys coming on. And, and so here I always try to finish up with kind of a fun, goofy one. So if your sound style was a creature, what would it look like?
Cthulhu.
Yeah. I have the feeling that most of my friends, that's going to be their answer, something in that realm. But lots of tentacles.
Yeah, fucking that dude right there.
There he is.
Every tentacle's a different flavor. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, I think this is about perfect timing because my thing's telling me my shit's about to die.
All right. Well, hey, thank you very much for coming on. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us and watching till the end here. Don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe, all of that crap. And, of course, I want to thanks Brian again for coming in, filling in at the last minute. We're going to do this. We're doing this every week. So tune in next week. We'll have some more. And I'm going to definitely ask you to come back, dudes, because you can go for hours, bro. You got a lot of
and I would like to I would
Tony
like to,
didn't even get a talk.
I know. I would like to let other people talk and get some stories out of some people.
Absolutely,
stories that I already know, but that I know that they don't want to. They don't want
them in line.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, hey, thanks everybody. We'll see you again. Take care.
Word.
Bye, everybody.